The magic of Christmas is about so much more than presents and gifts, but a Christmas present that brings a little magic with it can bring all those other Christmas values all that much closer to home. Hi, I'm Basha, and in this third episode of our series on magical realism in Christmas movies, we'll see how magical gifts can bring about life-altering changes, help mend a broken past, present, or future, and underscore the true spirit of Christmas. And we're going to start with two movies that feature one of the most notable magical gifts in Christmas lore, the Nutcracker. But in these modern takes on the classical story, the Nutcracker itself plays a minor role while another gift takes center stage. The first of these, The Secret of the Nutcracker from 2007, starring Janelle, Jorde, Brian Cox, and Tom Carey, deals with a young girl's internal struggle at Christmas time as she clings to the hope that her father will return home from a Nazi POW camp where he's been a prisoner for the past 2 years.
Merry Christmas, Dad. I put Dad's present on the mantle.
Behind her brave front is the very real fear that he'll never make it home from the war.
Look at what they did to those airmen who escaped. 50 of them shot dead just for trying to get home.
Her fears are kept at bay, somewhat, by the occasional letter that he's allowed to send.
My sweet wife and children, may you have the happiest Christmas and New Year, which it is possible to have until we are all together again.
But it seems like it would take a miracle to bring him back, or at least a little magic. And this scene hints at the form that the magical intervention just might take this Christmas.
Dream, Clara, and make magic. Everything's possible.
The magic begins when Clara meets a mysterious stranger in the woods dressed like an owl and accompanied by an entourage of ghoulish characters resembling crows or ravens.
Mein Name ist Drosselmeyer, but you will call me Uncle Dross. In one way or another, I'm everybody's uncle.
Inexplicably, Clara immediately trusts this stranger and invites him home to Christmas dinner with her family, which is weird enough in itself, but especially so considering the financial difficulties of the times.
I'm surprised you would invite a complete stranger to dinner. Well, I hope we have enough food.
But when Uncle Dross arrives bearing gifts for everyone, he's welcomed with open arms, and as you would expect from the title, his gift to Clara is a nutcracker.
What is it? He's a nutcracker, isn't he?
When he is here, then I am too.
So with this, we understand that Uncle Dross intends the nutcracker to be a surrogate for him in the wisdom he hopes to impart to Clara.
Reality is in the eye of the beholder. Your daughter already knows the most important of all secrets. But she does not yet know that she knows it. Huh?
But as she begins to discover that very night, her dreams can shape reality.
Dream, Clara, and make magic.
Dad, I love you. Please come home.
Clara.
And then Uncle Dross gives her another very important gift, a gift that comes from the very depths of her own heart.
She looks just like me.
She is you.
And she learns just how valuable this strong, pure, and indestructible part of her is when she has a nightmare that brings out the worst of her fears. She wakes up to a dream within a dream and has to face her fears head on, which she does. At this point, she's still thinking of Crystal Clara as something outside of herself, but Uncle Dross sets her straight on that.
She saved us.
You saved us, Miss Clara. She is you.
He then rematerializes Crystal Clara and gives her these words of advice.
Many things can be put right through tears. Not everything, though. Remember that.
I have to admit I struggled with what he actually meant by that, but I think he's trying to say that her tears represent her love for her father, and Crystal Clara, who's a product of her tears, is that enduring aspect of her love that will not give up, that will not let go of the hope that her father is still alive and that he'll come home. And now, having experienced firsthand the power of her love to vanquish the threats against her loved ones, she sets out, still within her dream, to find her father, with the forewarning that the results are not guaranteed.
Sturm und Gehorsam! Das ist die Regel. Ungehorsam wird bestraft sein.
He's in that hut, isn't he?
Yes.
Dad. Dad.
Clara?
Merry Christmas. Come with me.
There's no way out of here.
Yes, there is. You think this is a dream, don't you?
What else could it be?
Magic? Dad? What's wrong?
This is nothing but a dream. Thank you for the dream. I don't need magic and dreams, Clara. I need to be home again. For real.
How disappointing for Clara to have entered her father's dream within her own dream, hoping to bring him hope and to be met only with desperation. But Uncle Dross shows him a vision of what she went through to come to him and how she faced her deepest fears. He's deeply impressed, and all the more so when Uncle Dross shows him a picture of home.
And there you are, my Clara, fast asleep, dreaming us. And yet you're here with me.
It seems that he's beginning to believe in the power of Clara's dreams, but then the forces of evil overwhelm him.
Dad, where are you going? Daddy, don't leave me! Don't leave me!
I imagine her dream seems so far away at this point, but she hears Uncle Dross's words of wisdom in her head.
Clara, we never expect what we are dreaming. What we are dreaming is often closer than we expect.
And entering a building in the forest, we see her climbing these stairs, symbolizing her ascent to the higher spiritual realm of her consciousness where her dreams make their home. And there she finds the Nutcracker who leads her into the forest, which is where she learns that dreams can come true. So the real magical gift in this story is one that we can all access as we try. The gift of inner fortitude and the belief that we can dream a new world into being with the power of love and a hope that never dies. The next movie has a similar theme. In The Nutcracker in the Four Realms from 2018, starring MacKenzie, Keira Knightley, Morgan Freeman, and Helen Mirren, Claire is mourning the recent death of her mother at Christmas time, and her heart just is not in the celebrations. But a special Christmas gift that her mother had left behind for Clara sets her off on a quest that will change her life.
It's an egg of some sort. There's a keyhole. Here. But there's no key.
Or perhaps the key is not physical.
Everything you need is inside.
To a young girl, this message must have been very frustrating. But I'm sure you can already recognize an echo from the last movie we looked at. And that very night, although her heart isn't in it, she has to go to her godfather Drosselmeyer's annual Christmas party. But she's somewhat mollified by her sister's suggestion that Drosselmeyer was undoubtedly the one who made the egg, and so he might be able to help her open it. And Drosselmeyer does indeed confirm that the egg originally came from him.
I left this outside her door. And over time, she came to trust me. But most importantly, herself. And now she's given it to you.
In case you missed it, that's another foreshadowing of the value of the egg.
She came to trust me. But most importantly, herself.
He understands that Clara is having a hard time getting over the loss of her mother and offers his condolences. And when he comments that her father must be feeling the anguish of grief very deeply as well, she replies that he only cares about appearances, most likely because he's been putting on a brave front and trying to keep the family going by upholding the Christmas traditions and attending social events like Drosselmeyer's party. That all seems so empty to Clara in her grief. But Drosselmeyer gives her some food for thought.
Remember, Clara, some locks are harder to pick than others.
She doesn't pick up on the allegorical nature of his comment, though, and later returns to his workshop to look for the key to the egg. And much to her surprise, she finds a portal to another world. And she's almost instantly rewarded by finding the key.
Clever.
But her success is elusive.
Bring back my key!
And her first clue that this is a magical world is when a Nutcracker soldier comes to life.
Halt! Who goes there?
My name is Clara, and I must cross this bridge.
Impossible. That is the fourth realm, which is currently at war with the other three realms.
And when he presses her for a more precise ID, she finds out who she really is.
Are you in relation to Marie Starbuck?
She's my mother.
Forgive me, Your Majesty.
It turns out that Clara's mother was Marie from the original Nutcracker fairy tale, and she convinces the Nutcracker to accompany her to the forbidden fourth realm to retrieve her key from the evil Mother Ginger who rules over the realm.
Come here and get your key!
What was that?
That was Mother Ginger.
But her attempt is unsuccessful, and they return to safety and enter the castle where her arrival is awaited by the other three regents.
Make way for the princess!
Mother.
Unfortunately, she has to be the bearer of bad tidings.
How is our queen, dear Marie?
She died.
This comes as quite a shock to them, but Clara's more interested in getting the key back from Mother Ginger than wallowing in her grief. So she asks for a brief history lesson so she can understand who she's up against, and the Sugar Plum Fairy brings her up to date.
She tried to take control of the other realms by force. The ballet tells the story of the four realms. How your mother discovered our world. Watch closely, Clara. This is where our troubles began.
With Mother Ginger and the mice?
And now Clara's met with some rather high expectations.
Have you come to save us, Clara?
The history lesson continues, and Clara learns that the regents and everyone else in the realm were lifeless toys until Clara's mother brought them to life with a special engine. And then she learns what's at stake.
Our spies tell us that Mother Ginger is on the warpath. The engine is the only way that we can build an army to defend ourselves. But it doesn't work. Perhaps I can fix it. It's not broken. We're simply missing the key.
Clara notes that the keyhole for the engine matches the one on her egg and proposes returning to the fourth realm to reclaim the key from Mother Ginger. And even though the regents and the Nutcracker try to dissuade her, saying that it's too dangerous, she remains determined.
This must be why my mother sent me here. I must get that key.
And that night, faced with the prospect that no one may be willing to accompany her on her dangerous trip, she remembers something her mother once told her.
There are some journeys you have to go on alone.
But in the morning, she sets off on her journey, not alone, but in the company of the Nutcracker and a whole army. Clara finally gets to meet Mother Ginger face to face.
I've been expecting you.
If this key belongs to anyone, it belongs to your mother.
She passed away.
Queen Marie is dead.
For someone who's supposed to be Queen Marie's mortal enemy, she seems awfully dismayed to hear of her death. And this is our first hint that things may not be the way they appear. Clara does, however, manage to escape with the key, and anxious to know what her mother left her, she uses it to open her egg at the very first opportunity.
But my mother told me everything you need is inside. There's nothing here.
There's music.
But Clara's not looking for music, she's looking for answers. For everything, including her mother's death, to make sense. In her dejection, Clara hands the key over to the Nutcracker with the intention of returning home, but he persuades her that, as her mother's daughter, she still has a lot to offer. And so she returns to the castle with him and turns the key over to Sugar Plum, who sets the engine to work making an army of tin soldiers to defend the castle against Mother Ginger.
Prepare to march on the fourth realm. I thought this army was to defend us. My mother wouldn't have wanted. I don't care what your mother wanted. I only needed you to bring me the key, and now that I have it, I have no more use for you.
Sugar Plum's betrayal comes as a shock to Clara, and she finally begins to see the bigger picture.
Mother Ginger didn't do anything wrong, did she?
And then Sugar Plum reveals that she intends to use the engine to turn Mother Ginger and the other regents back into toys, and she locks them up along with Clara. And while she's locked up, Clara makes an important discovery.
Everything you need is inside. It's me.
So when the tin soldiers bring Mother Ginger to the castle for liquidation, Clara confronts Sugar Plum directly.
Don't do this. My mother loved you.
You of all people should understand, Clara. A true queen does what's best for herself.
No, a true queen does what's best for her people.
And because she is every inch her mother's daughter and has the scientific and technological skills to show for it, Clara has been busy setting the engine up to turn on Sugar Plum at just the right moment.
Clara, what have you done?
And her triumphs in her mother's magical land have helped her to make sense of the emptiness in her heart after her mother's passing. As she explains to the Nutcracker,
I'll miss you too. But when you miss someone, you remember them.
And when she returns home, she discovers a new sense of inner strength and an understanding of her true self and her mother's legacy, as well as a newfound appreciation for the remaining members of her family.
And I will miss her every day of my life. But I don't want to miss one more minute with you, or Louise, or friends.
So that one little egg held a lot of good things in it. And while the original Nutcracker story placed more emphasis on the awakening of romantic love, we can see a reflection of the changing values and expectations of young girls in these modern versions, which stress finding your inner strength and self-reliance rather than depending on someone else. But in either case, they're all coming-of-age tales in one form or another. As we've seen, the balance between magic and realism can vary in movies that use magical realism. Sometimes a fairly realistic story is just enhanced with a touch of magic where needed, and at other times the characters pass from an ordinary world into a completely fantastical realm. This next movie balances the magical and realistic aspects fairly well, and the magic is used to help the two main characters deal with a very true-to-life problem. The problem of growing up without losing that childlike wonder that Christmas can inspire in kids of all ages. So let's get started with The Santa Claus, starring Tim Allen and Eric Lloyd. This story deals with a dad who has a less than ideal relationship both with his son Charlie and his ex-wife, mostly because his ex feels that he's irresponsible and has never really grown up himself. To make matters worse, Charlie's dad Scott can't really measure up to Mom's new husband, Neil.
Neil's a real good cook.
Yeah, and you should see him walk on water.
Not only is Neil a great cook, but he also brings some other advantages to the table. He's a low-key, easygoing psychologist, a real grown-up in Charlie's eyes.
I learn a lot from him. He listens to me.
So when Charlie has to spend Christmas Eve with his real dad, he's anything but pleased.
You and your daddy are gonna have a great Christmas, okay?
Will you pick me up tomorrow, early?
And Scott doesn't exactly alleviate his misgivings. Even Christmas dinner is a big letdown.
That is exactly why you want a high-quality fire extinguisher right in the kitchen.
We're out.
All chocolate milk, please.
We're out.
At least we know they got hot apple pie.
We did.
The only thing that puts Scott in good stead against Neil is that he's okay with Charlie believing in Santa Claus, while Neil and Charlie's mom have been trying to discourage him from believing in fantasies.
Listen, all we are trying to do is give Charlie a firm grasp on reality.
The trouble is, Neil and your mom, they don't believe in Santa because they were real naughty.
Charlie's fantasy world gets a little boost that night when the real Santa Claus falls off the roof. But his dad messes that up too.
He's Santa! You killed him!
Did not. And he's not Santa.
Well, he was.
And then they find a card with a message.
If it should happen to me, put on my suit, the reindeer will know what to do.
As immature as Charlie's mom thinks Scott is, even he's a little more than skeptical. And even Charlie's insistence that he put the suit on and Scott's need for his son's approval don't convince him. But Charlie's disappointment starts to tug at his heartstrings. Just a little.
Never do what I want to do.
And when Santa's reindeer take off with Scott and Charlie in the sleigh, they get the ride of a lifetime.
Listen, Charlie, I'm not kidding. Let's go!
But in spite of what he's just experienced, when they land on a rooftop, Scott is still trying to be the adult that Charlie's mom wants him to be.
Because this whole thing is stupid.
How come everything I want to do is stupid?
Well, that finally got to him.
How do I look?
So the Santa suit, along with the rest of the Santa kit, the sleigh, the reindeer, and a magical sack of toys, make up the first of 2 magical Christmas gifts in this story. By putting the suit on, Scott becomes Santa and delivers presents to houses all over the world. Father and son spend an amazing Christmas Eve together, and it seems that Charlie's opinion of his dad may be changing.
Morning, fellas. Morning, sport. We're done common. Oh. Back to the house.
But the reindeer doesn't take them home. Instead, they end up at the North Pole, and Scott learns that he's stuck with the Santa gig.
Kid, who's in charge here?
You are.
You have 11 months to get your affairs in order, and you're due back here Thanksgiving.
And this is where Charlie gets his magical Christmas gift, although he doesn't learn everything about its magic until much later.
Oh. Why don't you hold on to it for me for a while? It might come in handy.
After their wonderful trip to the North Pole, Charlie and Scott's return home marks a turning point in their relationship. Charlie has a newfound love and respect for his dad, and that's exactly what gets him into trouble, because he doesn't exactly keep his amazing experience a secret.
Last night, Dad and me went with the flying reindeer. Dad was Santa, and Larry showed me the workshop.
Gee, thanks for keeping his feet on the ground.
This is my dad, Scott Calvin. He's got a really neat job. My dad is Santa Claus.
As I mentioned earlier, Mom and Neil are dead set against indulging Charlie in fantasy and fairy tales, and they feel that Scott is being irresponsible by indulging Charlie's fantasy world, to the point where they think Charlie is having a break with reality.
This is far more serious than a boy believing or not believing in Santa Claus. You need to sit down with Charlie, explain to him, you are not Santa Claus.
But that turns out to be easier said than done.
Charlie, I already told you, we did not go to the North Pole. That was a dream.
You're in denial, Dad.
They think that Scott is an unhealthy influence on Charlie, so they petition the court to take away Scott's visitation rights.
After reviewing all of your testimonies, I've come to a very difficult decision. In the best interest of the child, I'm granting the petition of Dr. and Mrs. Miller.
Needless to say, this is a moment of crisis for both Scott and Charlie. Scott has finally managed to gain his son's love and admiration, something that had been incredibly elusive up to now, probably due in no small part to Mom and Neil's constant criticisms of Scott. And now he's losing his son all over again. But it's hard for Charlie too. He finally sees his dad in a different light, as someone he wants to hang around with. And now he's caught in the crossfires of his parents' battle. Meanwhile, Scott is trying to hide the reality of his situation, but it's getting more and more difficult.
I don't know what's happening to you. You're starting to look like the Pillsbury Doughboy.
And on Christmas Eve, Scott's got the police after him when he breaks the terms of the court order and takes Charlie along with him on his round-the-world trip.
This is our perpetrator. 38 years old, believes himself to be Santa Claus.
Long story short, Scott gets arrested and then is rescued by the elves, and he brings Charlie back home to Mom. But Scott has been going through more than just physical changes.
I think it's a much better idea that you stay here with your Mom and Neil. I can't be selfish. I can't be with you all the time. We're a family. You, me, your mom, and Neil. And they need to be with you, too. You gave me a wonderful gift, Charlie. You believed in me when nobody else did. You helped make me Santa.
So Scott has finally grown up, and even his ex can see it.
It's my Christmas present for you. It's the custody papers. And I want you to come and see Charlie as often as you can.
And Charlie grows up a little bit too, by realizing he's got to share his dad with the rest of the kids in the world. But at least he didn't have to sacrifice his imagination or belief in magic on the altar of maturity. And now he finds out just what that magical snow globe he got at the North Pole can do for him.
Charlie, you still got the glass ball, right? Well, all you gotta do is shake it whenever you want to see your dad. He can come back to see you anytime, day or night.
Mom, stupid ball's not working.
Hey, sport.
Dad!
Oh, you missed me already? I've been gone, what, 10 minutes?
The real beauty of this story is that even though there are a lot of magical elements, the struggle of the main characters is very real. Both Charlie and Scott are dealing with the issue of growing up, albeit in different ways, and the real gift is the healing of their less than ideal relationship. I also love that everyone in this story really did have Charlie's best intentions at heart, even in the midst of all the conflict. And it just goes to show that there are always two sides to every story. And if we open our hearts enough to understand the other side, it's often possible to build bridges. Our next story really embraces the spirit of Christmas with a protagonist who embodies the sentiment that it's more blessed to give than to receive. In the 1960 Twilight Zone episode Night of the Meek, Art Carney plays an alcoholic department store Santa whose heart goes out to kids who have high hopes but low expectations of a Merry Christmas.
Oh, please, Santa Claus, a job for my daddy. Please, a big turkey for our Christmas dinner.
Why isn't there a real Santa Claus for kids like that?
And not being able to meet those needs gets to him so badly that he turns to drink.
Look, Mom, Santa Claus is loaded! Oh, it is my distinct pleasure to tell you that there is no more need for your services.
I can either drink or I can weep.
And this is one department store Santa who has a wish of his own.
I just wish Mr. Dundee, just on one Christmas, I'd like to see the meek inherit the earth.
And the next thing you know, his wish is granted.
Merry Christmas, everybody!
The bag seems to give everyone exactly what they want. So Mr. Corwin heads over to the Salvation Army Center, still in his Santa suit, to lift a few spirits there.
How about you, Bert?
I fancy a new pipe.
You fancy a new pipe? I'll see what I can do for you, Bert. Hey, you new...
Could I have a smoking jacket?
A smoking jacket to go with the pipe, Bert? I'll see what I can... Yes, there's your smoking jacket.
But his generosity soon arouses suspicion.
Where did you get all these gifts?
All I know is I've got a Santa Claus bag here that gives everybody exactly what they want for Christmas.
And so the police are summoned.
You got a receipt for this stuff?
And the gifts are just assumed to be stolen.
Mr. Florence, if you please collect all the stolen goods and put them in a pile over there.
Since he's been working at the department store, they call in his old boss to identify the goods, but the bag suddenly stops putting out.
Though I can tell you right now, Corwin, this whole affair comes as no surprise to me. I'm not a student of human nature for nothing.
And although the police officer seems convinced, Mr. Dundee requires a little proof. 80 proof, that is.
Well, go ahead, Corwin. I fancy a bottle of cherry brandy, vintage 1903. Mr. Dundee from Santa.
And he spends the evening spreading Christmas cheer to good little girls and boys throughout the city. But was there a present for him in the bag?
Nothing for you this Christmas. I think I've had the nicest Christmas since the beginning of time. Although if I had my choice of any gift, I think I'd wish I could do this every year.
And for the second time that night, his wish is granted.
We've been waiting quite a while for you, Santa Claus. We've got a year of hard work ahead of us to get ready for next Christmas.
And if you love Christmas, then you understand what a wonderful gift this was for Mr. Corwin. As adults, we're not often so concerned about what, if anything, we're going to get for Christmas. But there's nothing sadder at this time of the year than not to have anyone to give a Christmas present to, or not to be able to give the gifts you'd like to give. Well, if there's one thing we've learned from this movie, it's that in the world of magical realism, magical Christmas gifts can sometimes fall from the sky. But once in a while, there's somebody doing the pushing when pennies are falling from heaven. Like in the 1950 Christmas classic, The Great Rupert, starring Jimmy Durante. For a look at that and other movies featuring magical Christmas animals, click here. Merry Christmas!